Let me ask you something. What if the obstacle avoidance system on your brand new drone, the feature DJI put front and center in every ad, every spec sheet, every YouTube review, what if it fundamentally does not work the way you think it does? Not because DJI lied, but because nobody actually took the time to explain it properly. I spent weeks flying the DJI Neo2 in conditions that pushed its sensing system to the absolute limit. Forests, rooftops, low light, tight corridors, and every awkward scenario I could think of. And what I found changed how I think about this drone entirely. Some of it genuinely impressed me. Some of it should have been in the fine print. And one specific behavior had me standing in a field, completely confused, until I figured out what was actually happening under the hood. Stay with me until the end of this video, because the section that most people skip, the part about LiDAR's blind spots, is the one that could save your drone from an embarrassing crash. If you leave early, you will miss the single most important piece of practical advice in this entire video. And I promise, you have not seen anyone cover this the way I'm about to. How Neo2's vision system actually works. Here is where things get interesting. And I mean genuinely technically interesting, not marketing interesting. When you first look at the Neo2's sensor layout, something immediately seems off. The two fisheye cameras are mounted vertically on the body. They are not placed side by side like a traditional stereo camera pair. There's no left-right baseline. So how on earth do two vertically positioned cameras create a full picture depth map? The answer is something called displacement-based stereo. And once you understand it, you'll never look at this drone the same way again. Instead of capturing two simultaneous images from two different angles at the same moment, which is how traditional binocular stereo works, Neo2 captures images from the same camera at two different points in time after the drone has physically moved. Think about it like this. Close one eye and hold your finger up in front of your face. Your depth perception tanks because you've lost the two viewpoint advantage. Now bob your head to one side and then to the other. Suddenly you can estimate where your finger is in space again, because your brain is comparing the before and after positions. That is essentially what Neo2 is doing. The drone uses its IMU, its inertial measurement unit, to track exactly how far it has physically moved between two frames. It then compares how the image shifted across those frames and uses the combination of physical movement distance plus image shift to reconstruct a depth estimate. One camera doing the job of two by borrowing movement from the real world. This is genuinely smart engineering. It lets DJI offer a form of omnidirectional depth sensing at a hardware cost that would have been impossible with a traditional multi-camera setup. But the trade-off is immediate and significant. If the drone is not moving, if it's hovering perfectly still or rotating on its axis, it cannot generate new depth data from vision alone. No movement equals no displacement. No displacement equals no fresh depth information from the cameras. And that single limitation explains almost every unusual behavior you'll notice when flying Neo2 in real conditions. You'll see it clearly if you try standing still near the drone while it hovers. In the forward arc, which is covered by LiDAR, the system responds immediately to your approach. In any other direction, nothing. The drone doesn't react because it has no new visual depth data to process. You'll also notice that when the drone rotates, obstacle warnings don't vanish and refresh the way they do on higher-end drones. Instead, they persist, maintained by compass and gyroscope data rather than fresh visual computation. This can lead to false warnings that just sit there until you force the drone to actually translate through space, at which point the system remeasures and updates. It's a fundamentally different model of perception, and flying Neo2 well means understanding and working with that model rather than against it. LiDAR's role, strength and blind spots. Now let's talk about LiDAR, because this is where the Neo2's marketing starts to diverge most noticeably from real-world reality. LiDAR sounds impressive. Laser obstacle detection, works at night, full directional coverage, and to be fair, LiDAR is genuinely impressive when it works. The problem is in the category of objects it struggles with, and those happen to be some of the most dangerous things a drone can fly into. For large, well-defined objects, walls, buildings, trees with significant trunk mass, parked vehicles, Neo2's LiDAR performs reliably. At flight speeds of 4, 6, even 8 meters per second, the system detects those objects with enough lead time to brake decisively. If LiDAR has locked onto something solid and obvious, the stopping behavior is consistent and confidence-inspiring. That's genuinely useful, and it separates Neo2 from drones with no obstacle avoidance at all. But push the system toward thin objects, power lines, antenna wires, narrow branches, metal fence posts, and the picture changes dramatically. LiDAR pulses lenses can pass between thin structures without bouncing back. The system doesn't detect what it doesn't hit. Even at slower, more conservative speeds, these objects can slip through the sensing net entirely. This is not a Neo 2 specific failure. Thin object detection is a known challenge for LiDAR systems in general, but it's critical context when evaluating what this drone can actually protect you from. Night flight reveals this tension most clearly. Because vision-based depth reconstruction depends on the camera seeing something, it effectively stops working in the dark. LiDAR picks up the slack, and the drone can still respond to obstacles it detects. But the false positive rate can be higher in challenging conditions. And when LiDAR generates a false detection, the spatial memory model that Neo 2 uses means that warning can stay active longer than you'd expect, even if you rotate the drone away from it. The system assumes the obstacle is still there in space. From a safety standpoint, that's sensible. In practice, it can make the drone feel sticky and unresponsive in ways that are frustrating until you understand the logic behind them. Return-to-home behavior shows these LiDAR limitations most starkly. For large structures, a building, a radio tower with broad geometry, Neo 2's RTH algorithm is appropriately cautious, climbing early and giving obstacles a wide berth. But rooftops with thin protrusions, antennas, lightning rods, satellite dishes on thin mounts represent exactly the kind of geometry that LiDAR struggles to catch. Neither the cameras nor the LiDAR reliably detect those details. In complex environments, manual return to home with your own eyes and awareness is still the safer option. Full stop. The evolution of DJI obstacle avoidance. To understand why the Neo 2 is such an interesting and controversial moment for DJI, you need a little bit of history. Because DJI's obstacle avoidance didn't just appear one day fully formed. It evolved through years of engineering iteration, and every major version solved problems while creating new ones. The earliest full-direction systems used multiple fisheye cameras positioned around the drone's body. The concept was straightforward. Point cameras in every direction, compare what each camera sees, and use the differences to calculate depth. It worked reasonably well in bright daylight, on wide open surfaces. The moment you push those early systems into shade, indoors, or anywhere with complex lighting, their reliability dropped noticeably. They were also physically heavy, and the processing power required to run them in real time added cost and battery drain. DJI responded by gradually improving sensor sensitivity and noise reduction algorithms. Then came the real game changer, LiDAR. Adding a laser-based distance sensor meant the drone no longer had to rely entirely on visual data to sense nearby objects. LiDAR works by firing laser pulses and measuring how long they take to bounce back. It doesn't care about lighting conditions the way cameras do. That opened the door to meaningful obstacle avoidance in low light, and even at night, which was basically impossible with pure camera systems before. Then came drones like the Mavic 4 Pro. 6 sensor arrays, top and bottom coverage, extremely high low-light camera sensitivity, and processing that could handle all of it simultaneously. That setup is remarkably capable. It also costs significantly more, weighs more, and adds complexity that simply doesn't fit in a drone at the Neo 2's price and size. So the question DJI faced was this: how do you deliver a meaningful version of omnidirectional obstacle avoidance at a fraction of the cost and weight? The answer they came up with is genuinely clever. But clever doesn't mean perfect, and that's exactly what we need to examine. Real-world flight behavior. Theory is one thing, real flight is another. So let's talk about what Neo 2 actually feels like to fly when the obstacle avoidance system is actively doing its job, and when it's quietly struggling. The first thing that surprises most people coming from other DJI drones is how assertive Neo 2's bypass mode feels. On something like the Mini 5 Pro, obstacle avoidance is conservative to the point of being cautious almost everywhere. The drone slows down preemptively, even when an obstacle isn't directly in your path. Neo 2 is different. If the system determines that an obstacle doesn't require a significant maneuver, it maintains your current speed with no hesitation. Flying at 6 meters per second toward a gap, Neo 2 holds 6. Flying at 8 and the system decides it can thread through, it stays at 8. This feels fast and confident. It also means you are sometimes operating close to the edge of what the sensing system can accurately process, because maximum sensing precision sits at around 2.5 to 3 meters per second. Higher than that, and the accuracy margin tightens. When Neo 2 does decide a real avoidance maneuver is needed and slows down to execute it, the speed reduction pattern is interesting. From 8 meters per second, it typically drops to around 6. From 6, it drops to around 4. The final approach speed after deceleration is still faster than peak sensing precision. It works, but it's working with less margin than you might assume, and that's worth keeping in mind when you're flying in environments that mix open space with sudden obstacles. Forest environments produce some of Neo 2's most memorable memorable behavior. When you fly into a dense tree environment laterally or backward, the drone frequently responds by climbing. That might seem counterintuitive. Why go up into branches when the trunks are down here and relatively easy to detect? But two things explain it. First, the protective cage around the propellers means a collision with a branch is recoverable in a way it would not be on an unprotected drone. Second, the drone is making a calculated bet that climbing gives it a better chance of reaching clear airspace than trying to navigate between obstacles it may not fully see. It's a probabilistic safety decision, not a perfect one. Night flight is where the LiDAR vision partnership comes into sharpest focus. The visual system goes dark, literally. LiDAR carries the load. Hovering stability at night is significantly better on Neo2 than on its predecessor. That improvement comes from better GNSS positioning than improved vision. The drone holds its position reliably, but its sensing reach in the dark is limited to what LiDAR can touch, and we've already covered where LiDAR has gaps. Night flying in known, open environments? Perfectly manageable. Night flying near structures you haven't fully scouted in daylight first? Use your own judgment to fill the gaps the system can't. Follow modes tell a similar story. Neo2 supports follow functionality, and the obstacle avoidance integration during follow is present and active, but the behavior is noticeably more conservative than on premium models. It waits for clear directional opportunities rather than dynamically probing and adjusting. In practice, this means follow feels a bit slower to react and less cinematic in tight spaces. In exchange, it's more predictable, and predictable is worth something when you're flying close to a person. The protective cage strategy. I want to pause on something that I think is one of the most underappreciated design decisions in this entire drone. The full protective cage around the Neo2's propellers isn't just a consumer-friendly feature so people don't slice their fingers. It is a fundamental part of the obstacle avoidance strategy. And once you see it that way, a lot of the drone's sensing behavior starts to make much more sense. Every obstacle avoidance system has blind zones. Even the best drones on the market have edges, angles, and scenarios where detection is imperfect. On a drone without a cage, a Mavic, a Mini, anything with exposed propellers, a sensing failure that results in a collision is potentially catastrophic. A single propeller strike on a solid surface can snap a blade, destabilize the aircraft, and send a several $100 drone tumbling out of the sky. The sensing system, therefore, has to be highly conservative, because the cost of a miss is enormous. The Neo2 cage changes that risk calculation entirely. A bump into a branch, a glancing contact with a wall, a brief tangle with a shrub. These are recoverable events on a caged drone. The propellers keep spinning, the aircraft stabilizes. You fly out and reassess. This means DJI can afford to tune the obstacle avoidance system with a bit more aggression, a bit less paranoid conservatism, because the physical design already provides a layer of impact tolerance that naked propellers simply cannot. The cage isn't a compromise, it's load-bearing safety infrastructure, and understanding that reframes the entire experience of flying Neo2 in tight spaces. There is, of course, a trade-off to this approach as well. The cage adds weight and aerodynamic drag. It creates a profile that catches wind differently, and it introduces blind zones at the upper and lower edges of the drone's body plane, zones that shift and change as the drone tilts during flight. Even upward obstacle avoidance, which the drone does technically have, is limited by how the displacement-based system reconstructs depth from that direction. Moments where Neo2 drifts into branches or clips a shrub do happen. The cage usually makes them survivable, but they happen. Who should buy it and who shouldn't? All right, you've made it this far, which means you actually want to know whether this drone is right for your situation. Let me give you a clear, honest answer. Not a hedge, not a, well, it depends on your needs, but a real breakdown of who this drone genuinely serves and who it will eventually frustrate. Neo2 is an outstanding choice if you're flying primarily in open or semi-open environments where large obstacles dominate the landscape. Parks, open countryside, suburban areas with clear sightlines, coastal locations. These are environments where the LiDAR performs well. The vision system has room to build depth data through movement, and the protective cage handles the occasional miscalculation without drama. It's also excellent for beginners who are still building spatial awareness, because the cage combined with even imperfect obstacle avoidance dramatically reduces the frequency and severity of accidents. If you're a creative content creator who wants a small, portable, durable drone that can handle run-and-gun shooting conditions without constant babysitting, Neo2 delivers that experience very well. The drone is also a strong choice for education and learning environments. Schools, workshops, indoor spaces where exposure to more powerful vertical drones creates risk. The cage makes Neo2 genuinely safe to fly near people in ways that most consumer drones are not. And at its price point, it opens obstacle avoidance-equipped flying to a market segment that simply couldn't afford those protections before. That matters. Democratizing safety technology is a genuinely good thing, even if the version being democratized has real trade-offs. Where Neo2 will let you down is in complex, narrow, obstacle-dense environments where sensing accuracy and reliability are non-negotiable. Professional filmmakers shooting close to architectural detail, industrial inspection operators flying near scaffolding or thin structural members, anyone regularly navigating wire-heavy environments, the LiDAR's limitations with thin objects, and the vision system's dependency on movement create risk profiles that experienced operators will find uncomfortable. For those use cases, moving up the DJI lineup isn't optional. It's the correct answer. Similarly, if you need genuinely reliable, autonomous return to home in environments with complex rooflines or antenna clusters, Neo2's RTH is not a system you should fully trust without manual oversight. The honest middle ground is this: Neo2 is the best version of good enough obstacle avoidance ever put into a drone this small and this affordable. Its limitations are real, documented, and predictable. If you fly within those limits, and the cage helps you survive the moments you don't, this drone delivers remarkable value. If your flying regularly pushes beyond those limits, no amount of clever engineering will substitute for the hardware and processing power of a more advanced platform. Final verdict. So here's the thing about the DJI Neo2 that I keep coming back to after all of this testing. It does not try to be something it isn't. Every choice in this drone, the displacement-based vision, the LiDAR patch, the cage, the aggressive bypass behavior, is a coherent, logical response to a real engineering challenge. How do you build meaningful obstacle avoidance into the smallest, most affordable body possible? The answer DJI landed on is imperfect. It has genuine blind spots, genuine limitations, and genuine moments where a more expensive drone would have made a better decision. But it also works reliably enough, often enough, and in a wide enough range of scenarios that it genuinely changes the risk profile of flying at this tier. What I think the industry often gets wrong when evaluating drones like this is comparing them to what they wish this product was rather than what it actually is. Neo2 isn't a Mavic 4 Pro at a quarter of the price. It's a new category of drone, one where physical durability and sensing assistance combine to make flying forgiving in a fundamentally different way. That's worth something. Arguably, it's worth quite a lot, depending on how you fly. The one reminder I'll always end on when we talk about obstacle avoidance, at any level, on any drone, is that no system is insurance. The displacement-based cameras, the LiDAR, the spatial memory model, all of it. These are tools that assist a pilot. They do not replace a pilot. Your eyes, your awareness, your pre-flight planning, your decision to turn around when conditions change. Those are the safety systems that never have a software bug, never generate a false positive, and never fail to detect a wire because the laser pulse passed between it. Fly smart. Use the tech. Don't surrender your judgment to it. If this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what Neo2 actually is, not what the spec sheet says, but what it really does, drop a comment below and tell me what surprised you most. I read every comment, and I genuinely want to know which part of this changed how you think about this drone. If you disagree with anything I've said, tell me that too. The best conversations in the comments are the ones where people push back with real experience. Subscribe if you haven't already. The next video is going to take a hard look at a question a lot of you have been asking. Is the price gap between Neo2 and Mini 5 Pro actually justified in real-world flying? We're going to answer that with side-by-side testing data, not opinions. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you there.